Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat. And we're a show that's about trying to make the world safe for ADHD. And I am a clinical psychologist, well, actually neuropsychologist, and I am in private practice, and I am also the father of a child with ADHD, at least one, and sometimes I'm not so sure about the other two, or at least one of the other two, and that's okay. Okay, ADHD is one of those things. Oh, I forgot to mention, I have a private practice, and I spend a lot of my time working with ADHD people, kids, adults. At this stage of the game, I'm doing more evaluations than I am treatment, but still have a sizable a load of the treatment cases. Anyway, so the thing about ADHD, and it's still amazing to me, but it is still something that people think they have to believe in. And it's like, wait a minute. It's not a religious experience. It is a diagnostic criteria that is specified in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the APA, which doesn't mess around with stuff that isn't science and isn't proven. Okay, so now we know, even though we didn't not too many years ago, that it is a for sure real thing. It's, I say we don't know like it's just a recent discovery. The first time ADHD was described in the medical literature was like in the 1700s. Okay, they didn't call it ADHD. But all the symptoms they described were what we now call ADHD. And hopefully in the not too distant future we'll have a different name for it. But that's the way it is. And the other thing about ADHD is that until recently we haven't really had very good treatment options. We've had stimulant medication since the 1930s. That helps control things, and for those out there who need it, it's important to have, and it shouldn't be something you look down on. It should be something you say, well, shoot, if I were a diabetic, I'd take insulin. If I have ADHD, I take my medication that allows me to function in the neurotypical world. Okay, and that's another thing you need to understand, is that there is no medication on the planet that's going to turn an ADHD brain into a neurotypical brain. It's just not going to happen. It is, it's impossible, okay? And that's probably a good thing, okay? We call ADHD a disability and a deficit and all that other stuff, but it's really just a different way of thinking, and your brain works a little differently than the brains of neurotypical people, folks who don't have ADHD. And since ADHD is also what's called normally distributed, that is, you can have a little bit of it or you can have a whole big bunch of it, it is it hardly bothers some people, and other people's it's kind of a major thing and gets in their way. And also how you were raised makes a big difference. If you're raised in a very strict, do what I say when I say kind of environment, you're probably going to have more troubles with ADHD than if you're raised in a more permissive environment. But I'm getting a little bit away from what I really wanted to talk about today, and that's ADHD has some positive things about it, and one of the positive things is humor. ADHDers typically have a good sense of humor. I think probably, and I've done a little bit of research on laughter and humor and all that sort of thing, and it appears that what makes for humor is what's called different level of abstraction. That is, you set up your punchline up here, and then your punchline is down at a lower level of abstraction. That's probably getting a little too technical, but it's kind of the idea. It's like when if you come up to somebody and say, "Excuse me, sir, can I ask you your name?" And instead of giving you his name, he says, "Yes." Well, that will throw you back on your heels a little bit. You may even giggle because his answer's not at the level of abstraction that your question was. Okay, then again, you can look up communication theory and tell you about levels of abstraction and that sort of thing. But one of the things about being ADHD is you're an outside-the-box thinker. You are one by definition. You are one by birthright. You can't hardly help yourself, and nor should you try to. Thinking outside the box is a good thing. It's a way to see solutions to problems that other people don't see. But it also gives you a certain sense of humor, that you can see certain patterns that don't make sense, or certain ways we're doing things that you can call, and say, "Well, wait a minute." And one of the good things is that humor, having a good sense of humor, is a huge survival talent, if you will. People who have good senses of humor tend to be healthier, more satisfied with life, and on and on and on. They get sick less often. They have fewer problems with heart problems, cardiovascular problems in general. They have fewer problems with neurologic illnesses. You're just healthier if you have a good sense of humor. And the part of the reason I'm kind of onto this is that Friday, I'm sorry. Yeah, Friday. I spent all day in a workshop on a positive psychology workshop. And positive psychology is basically we started out in clinical psychology, and let's fix folks, get them functioning normally. And positive psychology is how do we get more out of life than just being normal? How do we get to the next level? How do we enjoy life more? How do we become optimal performers and people who enjoy life? And honestly, it's just a lot of the same habits that we use to become sort of successful in life, but it's more focused on taking a joyful look at things. And so one of the big deals is humor. In positive psychology is you need to have a good sense of humor, a good strong sense of humor, to feel like to keep going, actually, and to prosper and profit from life. If you can't see the absurdities and can't enjoy them a little bit, you won't. You will survive, but you won't be as happy about it as you could be. Hey there, Aaron. Good to see you. Or know you're there anyway. But humor is terribly important. And like I said, lots of people can survive, without any joy or like in life very much, but to get the most out of life, to enjoy life, to have some zest for living, requires a. I'm getting a little message that said somebody's grandmother told them to always keep their sense of humor, and I will totally agree with that. I just spent an 8-hour seminar learning about laughter and how important it is. It's kind of one of those things that I thought would be self-evident, but maybe it's not. But it does a number of things, and for ADHDers particularly, it stimulates the brain in a way that helps improve concentration, which is whoa, wait a minute, where did that come from? Well, we've known for decades and decades that one of the things that makes ADHDers risk takers and folks who really seem to always go for the unusual and exciting and interesting. They're the skateboarders, the folks who jump their bikes off our ramps and climb mountains and ski places where you probably shouldn't ski, because that stimulates neurotransmitters in their brain that help them concentrate and focus and feel a little better about fitting in. But when you have an ADHD child, they will surprise you. They will come up with these who knows where it came from kind of ideas and things. And it's not your job, but it is to your benefit to appreciate that and let them know you appreciate that sense of humor. Just odd questions, odd things that you don't really think about. I remember my youngest saying to me, "Dad, toenails are smaller than fingernails, right?" And I hadn't even thought about it. I said, "Well, I guess on average, yeah." "Well, then why are toenail clippers bigger than fingernail clippers?" I never thought about that. I never did. And I think that's what having the right attitude about ADHD, and Lord knows, I will freely admit that between my wife and I, we made virtually all of the mistakes you can make raising an ADHD child. We both came from pretty strongly, structured families, where you did what you were told and people kept track of that, and woe be unto you if you didn't do what you were supposed to do. It was do what I say, a compliance-based sort of organizational structure, and I think we basically tried, not quite as strictly as our parents did, but to have an orderly sort of family, but hopefully with some of the humor and joy of life. I think it's the job of every parent to try to do better than their parents did. Right? You hopefully got a different way of looking at life, and it's hopefully more in compliance with the prevailing society than your parents' viewpoint is, because they're basically 20 years ago, and they're preparing you for a life that may not be available when you get to maturity. But anyway, so humor with an ADHD child. First of all, you want to let them know that you appreciate it. Okay, when they come up with an interesting one, laugh, enjoy it. And give them some praise for that sort of thing. And, tell your own jokes, have your own humor. It's important for the whole family. Laughter is one of those positive activities that benefits everybody around you. And have you ever noticed that if you're around people who are laughing, that you feel better, that your mood elevates? Well, there's a reason for that. There's a scientific reason for that. Your limbic lobes, which is a part of the brain that is what's called open. That is, it's open to everything that's going on. Whereas your cortex is closed stuff. You're thinking, you're in your head, and it's not necessarily so much about what's going on. But your limbic lobe reacts to other people's emotions, states of being, so on. So if you ever noticed when you get into a room or into a work environment and you feel uncomfortable, because everybody in that environment is tense and worried, and that spreads throughout the whole workplace. The same way, if you go into a workplace and everybody's relaxed and joking and having a good time, your emotions react to that. Okay? That's one of the built-in systems, automatic systems, that's supposed to warn you early on that there's danger out there. Of course, unfortunately, most of us don't pay attention to those warnings until too late, but that's an important thing. And the same thing with your family environment, is it can be relaxed and comfortable, or it can be tense and tight and unhappy. As the parents, you have a lot of control over that, and it's not about what's happening in your life. It's about the view you're taking of it and how you respond to it. So that's an important distinction to make, because you always have the choice about how you respond to stuff, okay? You can be worried about money, you can be worried about mortgage, you can be worried about people being sick, all that stuff. But it doesn't have to be a tense and awkward and nasty environment. So one of the things I would say about having an ADHD child is you need to spend some time paying attention to them, first of all, and then second of all, reinforce them. Notice that they have a great sense of humor, and encourage them, and appreciate it. Wherever laughter comes from, it's a necessary medication for for all of life, but certainly for modern life. So, okay, that's me. We're talking about humor and laughter, and it's important to encourage that in you, that part of your ADHD child that sees things a little bit unusually. Okay, and remember, this is the show that we want to make the world safe for ADHD, because people who think outside the box are the people who change the world. And who knows, your kiddo may be the one who solves one of society's biggest problems, global warming, or electing lousy politicians. Anyway, so that's as close to a political statement as I'm going to make. Okay, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingras, and we are going to, I'm available at terrygingrasphd.com, or if you have comments, write them, below or sideways or wherever it is on this Facebook page. Okay, we'll talk to you next time.